Hi guys, Randall here. This week I've been asked by a viewer, can the water mages beat the meta light teams? They were trying to make that work, and it seemed like an interesting enough puzzle that I wanted to tackle it myself. My answer is not really. So I've tried fighting them quite a bit, I've tried a lot of matches, and I think I've had a roughly 50% win rate overall. But the thing is, I only win against the Jayden, Yuna, and Starlit Elena combination. If there's an Engelbert in the mix or a Summer Killfay in the mix, my team gets destroyed. And the reason is the only way we can really fight them is by stacking as much spirit as we can across the board. And then those magical scaling attacks are a lot less of a threat. But if there's a physical guy, what typically happens is they will eventually lap us, build a chain, and kill us, or Starlit Elena just hits us a little bit, and then Engelbert caps that with a Blade Bash, or Summer Killfay arrives and hits us, and that is a major issue. Summer Killfay especially has the ability to render the enemy team very tanky against us, and at that point it's also a defeat. So what I'm going to do today is I will show you my team, the best team I ended up coming up with, and the one that wins the most, and a couple fights. But in the end, should you change your guild battle formations with the water teams and start attacking light teams with them, I don't think it works well enough for that. So here we go. The cornerstone of our team is really Moore. She has a 91 spirit, which is crazy amounts of tankiness against magical attacks. The reason she hits that level is because we have 2 spirit up passives, a spirit up Esper, a card which gives 10 spirit in an individual ability, equipment that gives spirit, and then finally we're running the Lara Croft card, which gives 8 more spirit to everybody in our team, and some much needed luck, which means we have better accuracy against them as well. Moore is not really built for accuracy, but she has a guaranteed hit attack in the Kododama subjob, so she makes up for her lack of accuracy with that. And then in terms of abilities on off, everything is on in the Kododama subjob, but in the Red Mage subjob, I did turn off Watera because I just don't like that ability. I would prefer having her use an instant cast or a guaranteed hit instead of this when she could finish an enemy with a cheap ability. Then our second character is Summer Elsirel. When we do tackle physical teams, I try to have her match them because she does have a decent amount of defense, but in general, it's just not enough when I'm trying to build her for both types of defenses for her to really survive a long time. So it would work a lot better if she was spec'd specifically for physical, but I'm trying to tackle Starlit Elena team, so she needs some spirit. I found that it was hard to find a good balance for her builds. She still has a really decent amount of survivability because she has courage, and then our Aerith is going to cast Re-Raise on her. She's got neutral slash resistance, which is not great, but some decent missile resistance, which really helps against the enemy Jayden. And then in terms of abilities on off, I did turn off Tidal Culling because I want her to use Courage first, and Law of Safeguarding because it just seems useless to have a physical barrier when I'm targeting mostly magical teams, so I didn't feel like those abilities were very impactful for me. Then finally we have Aerith. I really wanted to use Aerith as a time mage and have her cast Haste, but Haste is cast before Re-Raise in her AI priority, and Re-Raise is just so impactful that we needed that over anything else. Now, our Aerith has a rather low amount of magic because she's running a physical card, and an Esper that doesn't give her a lot of magic either, but she still has enough to full our team with her heals every single turn. And then since she's very rarely attacking, it didn't seem too impactful to me. The reason I put Siren here is to give her some decent amount of slash resistance, so she survives Starlit Elena's attack at least one turn, and typically has time to heal back, and then Elena hits again, and etc. So that gives us a much better amount of survivability. In terms of abilities on off, I have turned off Protective Familiar. It would be great, but again, it takes precedence over her Re-Raise, and I really want her to use that. Same thing about the just do this for me okay. It would be great, but I really want Re-Raise, and Refocus is mostly useless when we're a bunch of mages with good amounts of starting AP. Then I'm using this subjob because Sorcerer's Storm is a long-range magic type attack that could potentially hit on top of somebody else's attack in an AoE and then deal significant damage, but I found that she uses Ray of the Ancients a lot more often than this. So with that said, let's go ahead and show you guys a couple fights. So let's go right here. Elena, Engelbert, and Jayden, they have a lot of damage and a decent tank, but they do not have a healer, so that could help us out. My experience, though, has been that against Engelbert, it's very hard to deal with him because we are going to waste our stronger attacks on him, and this is where we have most of our guaranteed hits. So even with those, we will have we are going to eventually take Engelbert down, but then the other guys, it's going to be a lot harder for us to kill them. So enemy Jayden increases their agility, that's fine. Then Elena uses Stella Maris for extra damage on their team, fine as well. Now what happens? Moore moves forward, tries to buff, and Engelbert has his shield as well. I don't think he's in range just yet. Nope, he actually is. So this is a really bad scenario. That means LCRL did not use her her courage yet. So she is still going to have 2 lives. We do have an Aerith set up to cast Re-Raise very early on, but that's still very scary to me. I usually like her to have as many extra lives as she can before the fight begins. Okay, so enemy Elena does have another life, and Engelbert now uses Sentinel, which means we're going to waste quite a few hits on him without having too much of an impact. So jamming thrust right there, 1500, and then I wonder what type of move we are casting with Milady Aerith. Okay, we lose our LCRL once, no more re-raise on her, and it was a heal, so at least she's back to full HP, but she's lost her extra life right there. Takes a Drain Evocation, still fine, but look at that lapping from the enemy team. Both Engelbert and Jayden are going again before Aerith goes, so at that point, we take a dual Magi shot that doesn't really do anything right here. Aerith is going to heal herself unless Starlit Elena comes for her, and we're still here trying to kill their tank. There we go, she Drain Evocations Aerith, takes her out as well. That is a Starlit Elena that is equipped with the Spirit Penetration passive for sure, considering the amount of damage she was able to do with that move. Another one, Sentinel from Engelbert, and then we drop the Limit Break on all 3. Astral Guidance, in my experience, typically pops enemies very well, but it does not one-punch Elena. In this case, though, it seems like it did, so consider me impressed. It also usually doesn't lend, which is a little bit of an issue in a lot of scenarios. So there we go, Moore goes again, finishes Engelbert, well, at least one of his lives. Then Elena goes again, unless she has the Spirit Penetration passive, which I believe she does have. She's not going to hit very hard. So 1,000, that's fine. We can take that. Retribution Drain, though, 3,000. That one is a very scary move. So at that point, we finish him off one more time, but the Starlit Elena laps us and kills us with the last sliver of her health. Let's go here this time. It's an Engelbert, Yuna, and Starlit Elena. So I guess we'll see what happens here. Something I've been considering is placing perhaps Aerith in front of Starlit Elena to make sure that they don't clash with Moore immediately, because if Moore clashes with Elena from a very far away distance, she's going to use her abilities that are not guaranteed hit, waste a lot of AP with misses, and then she ends up in trouble later in the match. But when Elena has her Stellamaris enabled and rushes to the middle, that solves my issue. It's just impossible to see the enemy on-off abilities before the fight, so we can't really predict that part of it. So at that point, Elsie has a lot of lives, and so does Starlit Elena. She's got the re-raise, and she will quite likely use Courage next. I think Aura of Blessings, interestingly enough, she does not use Courage next, so she goes for some other kind of buffs, which I think will play to my advantage, because at that point we have had time to use quite a few of our buffs, and I think we'll get in range of the enemy Starlit Elena before she gets that extra survivability. Astral Guidance from Moore is a huge AP dump, so that part is a little bit unfortunate, but even if it misses, it still decreases water resistance, which can lead to some powerful plays on my part. So we fire a laser at Yuna, but she's like, I can Aeon Bond, I don't care. Goes back to half her HP already, so yeah. Doesn't really care about the reflex that much. We do proc a magic reflex against Iridescent Blade, which is fun, and then Yuna goes in, probably uses a Holy at that point, or maybe a heal. I'm not too sure what she's casting, but we're gonna drop a Dreamy Typhoon on her. I don't mind the Dreamy Typhoon on Yuna as much. I don't think it's going to do too much for us, but reducing Engelbert's AP by 20 is very important because he is just a low AP character in general, so that's going to matter quite a bit. We take out Yuna, which is really good, and at that point they've lost a healer, and we can finally see the amount of damage that Elena is going to do on Moore. I'm quite curious here, does she have Sharp Mind or not? I find that most Elenas have it. This one seems to not have it though, because I would expect a lot more damage if she actually had Spirit Penetration. Engelbert uses Sentinel, he's at 43 AP still, so that's really threatening. And with Sentinel, I don't know what kind of damage we can do to him. Only 2,000 out of his 11,000 or so HP. That is really not great for us. So we're going to take Star Supernova. This is one of those rare Starlit Elena in her own specific sub-job. We're just going to give ourselves a little bit of a Spirit Up buff and start bonking at Engelbert with basic attacks at that point. Proc the Courage, great. He's finally starting to go down, but he builds a Saintly Cross for them to cap, so that was a great amount of damage from the enemy team. It's starting to be looking scary here, but I think with Engelbert's HP running low, we will finally be able to start attacking the primary damage dealer of the enemy team. We are out of range for Unevadable Pain, I think. Maybe, maybe not. And that's the last cast of Light Shall Bathe the World, and at that point, I do think our enemy Starlit Elena is also going to start running out of AP. Does not dodge the Ray of the Ancients, which is very lucky for us, and goes down because for some reason, I don't think she used Courage. Yeah, there we go. So procs the re-raise, we're going to hit her with an attack from the back, and she does not seem to dodge that either. I do believe Bahamut is guaranteed hit. At least I know most Esper evocations are. So we're going to see that badass animation where an Esper shatters planets, and then we're going to fire at her and probably take her down. Let's see. Yeah, goes down. So yeah, this was a win. Next, let's go with this one, where they have a very tanky lineup with basically Engelbert, who's just going to take away at hits while the other two damage dealers shoot us from the back. Again, very magic-oriented offense on their team, which is the whole reason we can take their damage. If that was a different case and there was a physical attacker in there, we would die quite quickly because Elena builds a chain, and then somebody else like Summer Killfay just hits us very hard. She seems to be the one character that water magic teams cannot deal with well at all. So enemy Jayden generates some AP, that's fine. More and company starts casting stuff, and we are ready with our survivability. So enemy Engelbert also really tanky, but at least they don't have a Yuna who's going to heal him up, so that really helps us out here. We're going to haste our Summer LCRL, and then what happens here? Anti-magic life wall, great. We get ready to fight. Something I really wish about Aerith's AI was that she would use the re-raise before haste, because really, it's quite unfortunate that she kind of wastes some AP on the haste when it doesn't matter nearly as much as the other ability. But there we go, we're going to reduce Engelbert's AP by 20, which means I think he'll only have enough for something like a Blade Bash right now. There we go. Gets the stun, he's lucky about that one. It's fine though. Summer LC does not need to take her next turn very quickly. We're going to have a hasted Aerith coming over from the back to try to help the other guys, and let's see what happens now. Starlit Elena comes in, probably takes out our LC, yep, but Courage, so we survived that one hit, and then Jayden's going to finish her off a second time with a Jamming Thrust. There we go. So now we've lost one. What can Aerith do? Well, she comes in with a Ray of the Ancients, which deals a decent amount of damage to Starlit Elena and reduces her AP by a little bit, but she is still very healthy. At that point, we drop Astral Guidance, and you can tell the work of the Luck Up Vision card that helps us land those two hits. I see that we have roughly a 50% hit chance on Elena in attacks like this, which is decent, but it's not like we can reliably do it every time. So there we go, taking a Prismatic Punishment on our Aerith, which is fine. It's not that much damage. We survive it by just a thin margin, but it does mean that Jayden's going to be able to finish her off right now. So Jamming Thrust, yep, we lose her, and then it's up to Moore to win the fight against every remaining enemy member. So we take one Iridescent Blade. Moore still has 79 AP. She is still very fine in that department, so procs the Courage on Engelbert, finishes off Elena. At that point, Jayden has 40 AP left, decides to waste some of it by proccing a Magic Reflex. Enemy uses Retribution Drain. I kind of thought he would be using his stun here, and that would have been more impactful, I think. But Jamming Thrust from Jayden is still enough to win with the second hit. Finally, let's go after them. This is a scary squad because they have AoE resistance, which is very, very bad for me. Almost all their good attacks are AoE attacks, so that's something I'm scared of, but I'm very satisfied with having an enemy Jayden in front of Moore because I think he's just going to waste AP on Moore for a long time, unable to deal any significant damage to her. Now, I know some Jaydens have a good amount of Spirit Penetration, and when that happens, I get surprised by the amount of damage they can dish out, but more often than not, that does not seem to be the case. So he rushes forward, drops a Magic Blast on us for 1500, which is not a significant amount of damage. We can Jamming Thrust him back for 1 punch, and then Jayden's just a non-factor in that match. So again, that's the main reason why I'm not too scared of Jayden's in fights, is he has a tendency to just not deal enough damage to warrant the amount of aggression he uses early on. At that point though, it's still not won. They have access to full life, they have a re-raised Yuna and Courage on Starlit Elena, and Elena by herself is the kind of unit that can carry a team. I say they have Courage, but they seem to not have cast it yet, so maybe they will encounter us before they use it, and if that's the case, it's a huge edge that they're giving us. So let's see what happens. We're probably casting the laser from Elcirel, which is really good against her. Nope, go for Magic Orb, and it's a 1-punch. So this seems to be a squad that's a little bit more squishy than what I'm used to. And then because Yuna died, Elena uses another Telemaris. Procs the Smile Practice. Fine. Okay, yeah, this is going a lot better than it should. If Astral Guidance lands on the No Courage Elena, I think we just finish the fight right there. Okay, never mind. They are a lot more tanky than we are towards magical attacks, it seems. Well, I'm surprised though. Why did Elcirel 1-punch when... Oh, AoE resistance. Yeah, let's go with that. So it was probably the AoE resistance that saved them on the first hit. And this time, with the magic water resistance down, Elcirel is able to cap and finish them. So this is it. Final answer. Tried the puzzle, got as far as I could into it, but I just don't think Water currently has the pieces to fight those light teams. When we get people like Astoria and Celes, it will really change the Water game around, and there will be characters that can handle the light team's damage a lot better and reliably hit them back for a decent amount of damages. But right now, I feel like if I wanted Water to win, I would have to run people like Farm to remove the enemy's survivability, and just reliably hit them as well, and then people like potentially Lara Croft or characters that have guaranteed hits and good amounts of accuracy, and then it would be a whole different challenge. For Water Mages though, it's not an easy fight at all. So with that said, hopefully you guys have found this interesting. I know I had a lot of fun tackling it, and then I'll be back soon with some more videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.